Welcome to my 10-minute live, wine time live, where I talk about different things that I've been experiencing in Italian wine lately. Today I will talk about a few different things, but mainly hybrid grapes, yes or no. I just wrote my LinkedIn newsletter about the seminar that was organized in connection with the Emozioni del Mondo, where different professors, journalists, and other scientific wine professionals discussed the past, present, and future of hybrid grapes. I'm Katerina, Grapevine Adventures. I write about wine, I talk about wine. If you need a content writer or content strategist for your winery, just feel free to contact me in a direct message here on LinkedIn. You can also sign up for my newsletter, which I will drop the link in the comments later on. So hybrid grapes or no? I mean, I discussed it at length in the newsletter. If you feel free, you can go and read all of it. But anyway, they discussed that they went through the history of the hybrid grapes, or Piwi as they're called nowadays. That it started out in the early 19th century, where crossings were made also in the United States and Canada, then in France, and then in Germany. And in the late 19th century, it became more and more researched into, and also in the 20th century. So the events leading up to needing more hybrid grapes is, of course, in the mid 19th century, when due to thanks to the Industrial Revolution, travel became faster between different continents, especially the US and Europe. And people often brought rootstocks or grapevine varieties with them, cuttings, and so that's how they kind of brought the phylloxera to Europe, which then kind of wiped out a large part of the European vineyards, especially I think in France, Spain, and Italy, of course. The American rootstock is or was also fairly resistant to phylloxera and to fungus diseases such as powdery and the downy mildew. The downy mildew that has attacked a lot of vineyards in Italy and Europe this year because it has rained so much, so it was constantly wet in the vineyards. And so that was like kind of a driving force to look further into kind of disease-resistant grapes, which are the hybrid or the Piwis. So the German word is very long. You can read it in my newsletter article, which I will also post on my blog. But basically, Piwi is a long German word that stands for fungus-resistant grapes. In the last few years, with climate change and the weather conditions that are very unpredictable, and years like this when the downy mildew hits very hard, hybrid grapes have become more and more important to incorporate also in the wine appellations or designations. So in 2021, the EU actually allows, since 2021, they allow the integration of hybrid grapes into the main wine appellations. And in France, they already have integrated some hybrid grapes in Bordeaux and in Champagne. But in Italy, it's still very resistant. And at this discussion, it was very interesting because there was a scientist from the Fondazione MAC who has also worked with Professor Attilio Scienza. And there was a couple from the University of Piacenza and Milan. And then there was a representative from the Rauscedo nursery in Friuli Venezia Giulia. And they were all kind of saying that it will become more and more important to integrate hybrid grapes, and then perhaps they will even, as Attilio Scienza says, use the AETs, which is the agricultural assisted evolution technique. Sorry, I had to look that up again, which means that it would be possible to add or detract a gene from a similar compatible plant, such as the Vitis plant, to make a grape variety more resistant and be able to continue to use it in monovarietal wines. According to Scienza, it would be more or less the same as a clone of, for example, a clone of a Sangiovese that is just more resistant. There has been a draft proposal in the European Commission about allowing these AET technologies. There are still some discussion about the ethics, but they're not kind of like GMOs, which has been forbidden in most countries. So I think this is a bit what lies in the future. There was a very kind of more challenging, or not contradictory, but challenging report from the president of the Federdoc and the Barbera and Dusty consortium. Let's see, what's his name? Filippo Mobrici. He was not saying no to hybrid grapes. He was just saying that in Piedmont, they don't think it's that easy because they make like monovarietal Barbera wines, of course, monovarietal Nebbiolo wines like in Barolo and Barbaresco. And it's not feasible to add hybrid grapes to these wines, according to him, because it would change the typical traits of these wines. And he might be right, because it's wines, they are wines that are very kind of high profile premium wines that we all love, such as Barolo and Barbaresco, of course, or Brunello with the Sangiovese, Aglianico in the Taurasi. But I don't know. I mean, my thought in the newsletter is, but is this a fabricated history? Did we always did people in the past care that much if it was a monovarietal wine? I mean, I think a lot of the times, a lot of grape varieties were grown together in vineyards and harvested together and probably vinified together. So I don't know if there's been that much of monovarietal wines historically. But I mean, it might be, and I mean, we've grown to love monovarietal wine and the indigenous varieties, and I am one of them. I love monovarietal wines and indigenous Italian grapes or indigenous grapes from any other country. Yesterday, I also went to a dinner organized by Vino People Association, which is basically Sara Cintelli and Milko Chileri, who in Florence organized wine dinners where they kind of make a selection of different wines. It's in a very cozy and informal environment at a restaurant in the center of the city. And this autumn they organized them at the Caminetto restaurant just next to the Duomo. And yesterday they had selected 3 Vernaccia di San Gimignano wines. Vernaccia is one of these indigenous historical grapes that is grown only in the San Gimignano area. You don't really grow Vernaccia anywhere else. It's a very particular grape, giving white wines with longevity. If you drink them young, you might not appreciate them much because they need their time in as to age. And I, of course, launched the question to the 3 producers, which was Le Fornacelli, Il Palagione, and Cesani, what they think about hybrid grapes. I explained about that I had been at the Emozioni del Mondo, which is this wine competition in Bergamo organized by the Val Calepio Consortium and the Bergamasca Wine Cooperative. And the idea was from Sergio Cantoni, who was the director of the Bergamasca Wine Cooperative. I think he's retired now. And they said the same a bit like the Mobrici in Piemonte, that it's hard with Vernaccia because it's such a particular grape. It has certain characteristics that it then also gives to the wine, and to kind of mix it up with hybrid grapes, they think would take away from the wine the typical traits. Uh, but I think I asked also about the AETs, and if it would be possible to modify one gene to make it a bit more resistant, that the grape would probably be still maintain its main characteristics. But I think it's too early to ask about these things, but because nobody really knows much what is about it and what is going to happen. Uh, but for sure, I mean, they still think that the Vernaccia will survive the climate changes. And the Vernaccia, for those of you who doesn't know, it's the particular wine produced at DOCG around San Gimignano area. It is a wine that can age very long. Uh, it has freshness, good acidity, salinity. There's a lot of fossils in the soil in that area because it used to be under the seabed millions of years ago, which gives it a lot of minerality, complexity of aromas, and it also has the characteristic aftertaste of the almond. And one of the wines in particular had this aftertaste yesterday, which was the 2015 Vernaccia di San Gimignano from Le Fornacelle. The Il Palagione Hydra 2016 was very fresh and it felt very light in the mouth, but it's still a structured and complex Vernaccia di San Gimignano. I think also because 2016 was a very good vintage in Tuscany in general. The year weather-wise was very stable and very, there was no kind of high and lows of heat waves and rains, too much of anything. So the wines are very fresh, a good acidity level. So it's generally thought in many wine areas that it will be a good year for wines with longevity, that they will be able to age very long. And I think you could feel that in the Il Palagione wine. I specifically liked the Cesani, which was San Vernaccia di San Gimignano Riserva 2017. That is ages only in cement. Because I have experienced Vernaccia aged in cement before from a couple of wineries, and I think it gives the Vernaccia really, it maintains its varietal traits very well. It makes it very complex. It doesn't take anything away from the grape as if you would age in oak, because I think oak on the Vernaccia can be a bit too invasive. And the owner, Letizia, explained that where they have the vineyards, it's a very arid area. The grapes, even in very warm years, they maintain the freshness, but they have a very strong character. They're very kind of concentrated in themselves. So when they aged in oak, it became a bit too much. It destabilized the wines, and it kind of altered a bit or disturbed a bit the varietal characteristics of the Vernaccia di San Gimignano. So they found that it was the perfect way to use cement to be able to give an expression to the grape itself and also to the local terroir in a more suitable or ideal way. And I think I agree with her. So in the long run, when it opened up in the glass, you really felt the complexity and the freshness, the structure kind of just developing even more in the glass. And still, because it was in 2017, so it was a very warm year, just like the 2015, but also the Fornacella had an amazing freshness and acidity, even if it also was from a very warm year. So it was three very excellent examples of the Vernaccia di San Gimignano. And the series of wine dinners, they have given the name Uguali ma diversi. So the same, but still different. So I think they're going to play with this kind of how wines from the same denomination can be very different, but still they are the same. And so if any of you are in Tuscany or around during the autumn and you want to go on a wine dinner, it's mainly in Italian, but I'm sure you can appreciate it even if you don't speak that much Italian. You should definitely contact them and sign up for one of their dinners during the autumn. But back to the hybrid grapes, I'm just going to say some last few words. So the conclusion was that there was a lot of discussion about whether it should be inserted more in the nominations, and of course there are these kind of hybrid grape growers already, like Terra di Guerre, who then made a lot of comments on my post, and we have had an exchange of messages. And of course they're very well known as growers of hybrid grapes, and I think they were one of the first. I think there could be and there will be a market for hybrid grapes, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think the difficulty will be to integrate them in the larger denominations, DOCG mainly, but also DOC. But I think it will come. I mean, change is hard. It takes time. I mean, I wrote in the newsletter article also, like, you know, if my taste can change. I mean, when I started out, I was called this kind of having a typical international taste, like they say in Italy, kind of liking the more Bordeaux style wines with a lot of oak and French grapes mixed in. And then, you know, the taste evolved. The more you taste, the more you understand about wine. Doesn't mean you don't like these kind of wines anymore. It just means that perhaps you understand more. You understand also the combination of oak or cement or steel or amphora or corchopesto and how it relates to the wine, the combination, the development of the wines, and I think that's totally normal. And I mean, if you could start changing denominations in the I think in the 80s, 90s to add French grapes to wines such as the Chianti Classic or even to the Gaglioppo in Ciro in Calabria. I mean, why can't you? I don't see any problem in adding hybrid grapes. I mean, I don't really see the difference. I mean, okay, French grapes are considered, you know, very kind of exclusive in the wine world, but still, I mean, I think there's a bright future for hybrid grapes. If you want to read the whole newsletter, I will drop the link below in the post. If you want to sign up for my newsletter, just click on the link in one of the comments below